Alright, you got me, boss. I'll hear you out. Let's see what you got. Double up after the Bunny Smasher Grew division
Hello,
here.
and welcome to a Skanska project. My name is Hendrik Van Brink.
Good to have
I'm
an
the Chief
expert.
Environmental Health and Safety Officer for Skanska in the United States. Today we're going to talk to you about things that you'll see at every Skanska project around the United States, starting with stretch and flex, taking you into pre-task planning.
Mean to cut you
Where it's
off,
not
boss?
just an administrative process, but
Boss?
where we actively want.
Okay. Well, my job is to take one of these safety video off in situations where they normally are, for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's hard with me because I start off with the time work fraud case for other things that play off at actions at spooky distances of wobbles. But that is to say, final destination, somebody boil all over the floor. Yeah, you just laid him out. Okay. Usually where I come from, this isn't so much of the standard stretch and go. We get you clocked in. That's your own game. You have to come and do that. So when you have to adjust over into NASA standards of stretch, do yoga, micro, obviously not on the facility floor. But what you do has to be critical to the mass gap standards. Where's my mass gap? Oh, Tom's got it for me. Okay, but your mass gap standards have to be to the absolute stop the clock, stop the apocalypse levels of what the situation mandates. And they become internal schematic housing. This is legacy, guys, leisure, right? We're looking for, somebody to come in with most places that aren't done comparative to places that are, and then running it like a math problem. Okay, so this math problem becomes a training system under parallel sets of take it home. Think about that problem. There's no pressure. This is not Army, but this is life and circuitry. So, it kind of comes up into the situational model of slip, trips, and falls, safety, quality, quantity, being the only book that I have time or principle to even bother function with, given any degrees in circuitry to the differential of resistance and some of the function. So as I brought this guy up because I wanted him to run with it.
Want your input in how we can do jobs safer and better.
Like the stretching model.
Executive site visits and how those are meaningful
PT,
personal
nutrition,
contacts between our
neurology,
leadership
get them
and
going. All right, so
finally, and perhaps most importantly,
usually where I go with something like that is straight off into it, guys. I know some of you like to party, come in late, drink, have a good time. This is life, safety, quality, quantity on the shop floor for a different job. Okay, if you're planning probation officer, drug and alcohol coach, nutritionist, if you're going what is it, UHS nurse for mental health dual diagnosis, and you have to deal with a brother sometimes coming from some of this with PSTD or any other place where you could recognize 83 or 42 for the differential on some of those systems traveling down the pipes. This is mechanical action stuff, guys. You know the game. Big rocks come down, they squish everybody in the room. Building comes down, bolts aren't right, plasticity of who you trust to do that, check that stuff, run off on that number so it correlates to some time stuff, and equally them clocking you or running the individual set themselves, sometimes both. So it's not just that, it's like they're in there right now, they're on detail to do that, and hopefully there's proper adjustments in Drax equation and any other business model platform, mathematics, or standard that go into the economics of the 45 on Hubble's for redshift and lensing problems that put the actions at spooky distances in the relative frame of calculations that are necessary that become incident reports under those standards. Somebody's observation beyond the fact of this imaginary line, right? So this one imaginary line. Again, so when we get into immediately, some of you are going to like to party, do stuff. Things are legal, not legal in certain places. Sometimes there's an adjustment of the standard that's relative to the company, given how many companies and the rule of right-hand thumb on the situation of some of the models and how you do math, the best predict lawsuits, timelines, adjustments, relative needed topology on top of Everest, under the Mariana Trench, or anywhere is on No Crabby Island trying to get it. No. Level, relative stress, anxiety, what do you got, stressors. For Army survival becomes this is a box. This is a Hydron glider. So.
This idea of stop work. We want you to feel truly empowered and not pressured, but
Like
feel
cameras.
empowered to be able to stop.
Alright, so there are some rules, guys. I encourage marketing. I do like it when you're in training under a manager and they don't like you recording them under this thing. That has to be negotiated with the company in itself. about choices and stock models of timelines that under their negotiation. That's the first bit of it. It's the same problem as any other one inside of there. But this becomes the reasonable standards under cameras of I said I was looking up the machine and you should see the correlated actions of not playing Hustler's Castle over here, or Idle Miner, or whatever else you're supposed to be doing, trying to put some operator together while you're cutting off a getter here. Inside of there are timelines for it. There'll be common actions. There'll become gravity. Generally, Joe, you're over there doing your thing with Larry on your break. Stuff got weird over there. What was the difference today? After the cameras on repetitive systems and getting up in here and seeing steel mills explode that were just beautiful, clean floors, but just old bolts over time and just sheer force numbers you can never quantify because pieces of steel never lasted this long in terms of virology and why you can't give 16-year-olds and under the COVID shot right off the hop in case something does happen. Then you have a security net for a population on the other side. Insurance, tax lines, dollars, and why those costs are going to go to there, something like that, when you factor into those variables these situational heavy duty pieces of equipment that need to be drove around and operated by at least somebody in the room. And having a standard model like any other model of the training position, the first one that comes in here is first to operate with the people in the room before really what the job is. There's some language stuff that seems like a common operator, but has to be negotiated into a tighter, finer space before people say when and where. Common things correlate to the ground around them and that pallet being full to operations and other things for people doing things whether they should be or whether they shouldn't be, as common site applications under Sharp's cases of harassment, sexual or physics, time work fraud cases. Guys, this is going to become a Stanford force class of general relativity, hot plasmic state, the cosmic radiation background, Kelvin, and the temperature differential of this thing being a vacuum. Okay, things are going to pop up. They're going to weigh certain masks. I'm going to dial this in right, and it's just going to click. Things are going to ask questions, especially when you're not factoring that somebody else or multiple groups or even yourself against the physics on the ground for an investigation of a director or a defense attorney, general, or just regular county. Going to have to do state troopers investigations about whatever has to come up because those are now offset systems, OSHA, MSHA, shock in here, safety videos. I've heard a lot. They have a lot of different standards, but they do, or at least they should, follow the same basic rule of a case and whether those things are lawful, non-lawful, whether the adjustment of time and asking for raises against other employees, that being a differential of why you can't do it, knowing their play, inverting shadow problem on that play, it becomes very competitive and it becomes a state under an area of freedoms and gravities that get real heavy. If you're not careful with at least the conversation and how we take that conversation from here and new considerations of where it's going. At least limit the problem so that the entirety of the problem can be noted and then examined and then function under that before any other problem is really dealt with.
Stop work when you see unsafe behavior. We at Skanska can talk about statistics and safety in a variety of ways, but really what it comes down to is a personal commitment to you and to your family that you go home safely every day.
Your day is going to start with safety. Videos. You're going to be talking safety all day long, and your day is going to finish with safety because it is our focus. We plan our work, we execute our work well, our job sites are clean, our people are professional, and the safety of you and of all our employees is our number one priority.
Injury-free environment has been a part of the culture in Skanska in the United States.
I think a lot of people forget, this video right here is how they have to prepare their safety as safety operators. Now, if I can double that down and have you be the worker and have that person teach you that skill, would it be worth you for him to allow that person to stay there while you do this function and potentially utilize that skill, if necessary, somewhere else as a degree that increases that? And percentageably on the board, you would be worth more in case that person had a sick day. Case that person did, but as of the moment, topology being locked, I can't necessarily put two things in one state. That's how that differentiates. And a lot of time I just tell a kid, go out there and study some Oppenheimer stuff, or get out there and Valentine Rabbit the best you can, buddy. You're gonna take a long time. You're gonna be all raggedy, eyes falling out. That don't matter to me, buddy. I love you. Get up there. Oh, the chisel that's got that mushroom, just right, fits in the pocket, doesn't fall out, got that extra. Wouldn't want to use any other tool in the cabinet until you find out he's got something. Then you instead of involving your stuff, you get the big upgrade on it because you did time money differentials on Pythagorean theorem. Okay.
United States for over a decade. We often refer to it as a journey, and we've seen amazing results. As a matter of fact, we have about 1 lost time accident for every 7 that the industry has. But the fact is, we still have that 1 lost time accident. So when we talk about that journey, when we talk about that progress, is to make injury free.
Okay. So what I want to bring up right there, like I said, that CAT interview is right there with you and your team every day. You're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem with the boss. Anything that's a free radiant electron, they say negative E for electrons, Feynman diagram. So in terms of calculus, negative, neutral. Neutral is a good state. Think this is a good day, weather, rainy day, Sunday, doesn't matter. It's a 0 state into the next day where it was either really good or just kind of not so great on that indicator of wherever that could be on the real number, one way or the other. And then you try to benefit those, especially if you can knock some of these in here and kind of segment, at least pay attention to this one more than just being blindfolded and being a robot, which I assume most of you are. Right there, it's like I said, when I do my safety brief, can I do both? Do I have 2 hands, or is there a way that I say, for the management system, what I did every morning, then there's a camera up there from the first one I was down here to checking on it, becomes a safety video. This is Fermilab in the morning, because if they're not done, particles and neutrinos turn into wave functions on graphene, paper later. Service team didn't last. The serviceability of the skid steer hydraulics didn't last as long. They're weird indicators because MSHA and OSHA are going to tell you stuff about CAT and how you can't bolt anything to it, weld anything to it. John Deere is going to give you some stuff about fair usage cases in the Supreme Court right now, or at least they were. They might be passing through about hackers that can get in there and do the program, but it's so computer tech that you can't really do anything with it. And at the end of the day, bolting stuff on the saw is a custom saw for a building sometimes, or a custom topology that the math problem for the plumb bob with a cat driver with a excavator has to climb up this hill to get to the work site. I mean, then when you're up there, it's great, and then all the things like, well, you're going to have to be real careful there, and it's like, absolutely. That's where the internal containment of the situation went from 0, 1, or 1, 0 in some irrational way, where the standard of this, really clean. We know that this is going to have a lot of acoustic flutter in this part, so eyes, observations inside of the system need to be at least up into that field to make sure that the safest of the standards, the lowest of numbers of the people, given the thing, being sensible risks, not just jump the motorcycle up the huge dirt. We're not here for the trials. Mason's game where you can sign the rules and do whatever you want. This guy's going to stop that. He's going to say, no, can't just jump up on the skid steer and trailer on that. You got to lock those pins and do those things when hydraulics break. You got to. But you'll never know that. It's too much information, and it never really happened to you. And it didn't happen in the shop. It's going to happen to you when you're out there dumping it that one time and the hydraulics break. You're going to have the forks on it, and and that's a hard thing to prepare for. Stop. Go right to the office. That's not a problem. You were never trained for this situation. This will be a type of situation that will happen later. But the first of the minimum X's in general relativity to the hot plasmic state still remain. They're still there for steps that you'll need to function and focus. Hopefully, if you have extra additional functions, we'll work to that. If right now that is not a thing, we'll put it on a list and get to it later. Let it pass around till, oh yeah, that was a great idea. I want to get back on that, and then encourage that training on that if the money or time or situation is there. And that's where things can get marginal, but hopefully if there's enough eyes on it, 2 opinions, 3 opinions on whether it is, or the specific direct confirmation a lot of the times too, with the person you are thinking about. They are not pieces of equipment, so that's just an additional program you put to it, knock it off, get it done, and then you will know exactly what you were doing and hopefully take it from there. Let's see where he's going with it. Well, go back to the other guy here, buddy. Murphy's Log, definitely. Write it in there, put it in the book. I think I got a path for it. Yeah, we will. It'll be great. Yeah, it'll be great, they say.
Hello and welcome to
what's been the next
Introduction
one
to
on
OSHA,
there?
a workplace safety presentation.
This is the box right here. Other side of this coin is all this. This is safe and not safe for some people. This relative decision-making process. As it terms of a test that you can, well, you don't have to use it as the thing, but you can choose to do so when you do, and when people do, and then they do that in front of you, if you really decide not to do that stuff, it makes for a big issue. A big separation against factors of thinking about something that are just no differential between that whatsoever. So this informational, it's not just that you get it and then you go off the rails about somebody doing something, trying to make a penny with it, and there are some sensible points inside of it, stripping it down, sensibly downgrading your droid to its basic parameters so you can actually build off of it, connect to it simply, just the parts, sticks, and rocks you got. You don't generally, a stick can be anything. You can carve a stick into anything. Put enough of the atoms together and it's a gear, but you're not going to make the big one for the aircraft carrier. That's just the factory design and differentials of large number of laws and things like that between $1 million, Warren Buffett this morning, and $10 million or $1 billion. The equity differential, if you're putting the time into it, you should make half of that back. But if you only have $300 and you put that on a Wobbles account, there's a magic ratio where you have to do everything Shangri-La to make anything. But once you get up beyond that, it starts to get a lot easier, and you have a lot more of an operator, and it's going to make you pay attention to what you're doing, what you put it on, how you do it, which large lot of numbers is basically the same thing, just the pressure is differentiated through that system a little different. Makes this real dangerous if I was like, nope, can't do nothing. Well, it doesn't mean it's dangerous or it can't blow up the world, but in terms of where operating skills of programming are, I would be dangerous to put you on purpose in certain things, because the result and the learning curve on that thing with no skill, with nothing, is going to be too long for you to figure this out. You might do some stuff, but takes too long. 20% of that's going to be push the wrong button, do all the wrong timelines, GPT-3 yelling at you about it, something to that effect. So I think that's a good safety brief for where we're living. Like I said, if you can get that active direct physics problem going and generalize it in matrices, it gives you the bridge between quantum mechanics and general relativity in physics. And then they're going to get you with X, Y, Z's and 3's. You thought it was 2, well it's 3, and it's 1, and it's 2. And so that's where Three-Fingered Joe steps in and is like, hey, guys, it's life. Catch you on the next one.